Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the March 27th meeting of the ESSA Steering Committee meeting to order. And want to welcome everybody. We have a small group, but I think we've got some great information to share today. Our first item of business is we do need to approve our minutes from the January 30th meeting. So anybody has any comments or questions about it? Okay, if not, then I'll accept a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the Wednesday, January 30th, 2019 minutes as written.
Okay, motion by Ms. Flowers.
I second.
Second by Ms. Bratton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. All right, our first item of discussion is some great news. The ESSA amendment approval was approved in March. So, Ms. Kaufman.
Good morning, Debbie Kaufman, Department of Ed. We are here to celebrate that we did receive a letter from Betsy DeVos's office that our amendment was approved, and you will see our long-term goals in the report card that will match what we requested in our amendment. That information has already been posted to our website. We included all of the information that we sent, all of the information they sent back, and then we've uploaded a new plan that took the red line out and you make it black again in the font, so that now that's your plan. We've also submitted that to the U.S. Department of Ed, and they will then put the latest version on their website.
Okay, great news. Congratulations. I know that was a lot of work.
I wish I could sing. I'd sing Celebrate, but
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
can't.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to look at some reports. Did anyone have a question about the amendment? Okay, all right. The advisory group reports, and the first one is accountability. Dr. Ward, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Alexandra Boyd, Public School Accountability. As you can see in the attachment, I'm just going to give you a summary of the ESSA Accountability Advisory Team meeting that we had in March. So we met and we provided our stakeholders with some updates. At the time, we were talking about the ESSA amendment being sent in. At that time, it hadn't been approved, but as you just heard, it has been now. We also discussed the state report card release and the communication about that, and we solicited suggestions from the group. And then Dr. Stroud was there to talk about where we are in the 1003 grant process, and she just gave an update about that. Essentially, applications have been reviewed and accepted, and we're starting to work with districts on those process. Then we had a discussion, a dialogue about that focused on the SQSS indicator, and we got a lot of positive feedback from our stakeholders about that, and then also some ideas about ways to improve that indicator moving forward. And those are some things that we'll take into account as we move forward. I think one of the most notable that I heard over and over again was about student engagement, that districts were looking into which students were being chronically absent and why they were being chronically absent, doing needs assessment and addressing the needs of those populations. So do you guys have any questions?
Anyone have questions over here?
No.
Okay. On the indicators, you mentioned student engagement and student absences.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any discussion on teacher absenteeism?
Yeah, teacher absences usually comes up. I just have a note about it. We didn't talk about it extensively, but they did mention that it would be nice to have that in the SQSS indicator moving forward.
Okay, because I think I read last week that some other states are starting to look at that as an indicator, and I didn't know if we were giving that any thought at all.
Yeah, we are giving thought to it. Right now, the way it stands is that I don't believe that teacher absenteeism data is collected uniformly across the state. So that's something that we would have to work on if we were going to use it for accountability.
Okay, so we'd have to work on our data collection first, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then, on the, SQSS, are they looking at surveys, or are they looking at other forms of data?
So I think they're looking at the data, especially with the student engagement, they're looking to see who those students are and actually just having individualized conversations with those students to figure out what's going on and how they can help them attend school.
Okay, all right. Were there any other, major, mentions of things that they would like to see in the future?
Yes, a number of them mentioned wanting to see the program completers for the CTE. And that's something that we're working on, how to collect that data uniformly as well for a future plan. I think those were the two that were talked about the most by several stakeholders. They also mentioned some things about the ACT score and different ways to incorporate that into SQSS. And they also were very pleased that the overall system included English learner growth. They were very happy about that. And the structure of the weighted achievement that provide motivation for moving all students forward.
So they were pleased with those points?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
good. It's good to get positive feedback too.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
always listening for ways that we can improve. So great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Ms.
did you have something you want to
I
add?
will add that we are beginning to collect data on teacher absence, and we already have some data on the completers, but it's important before those things are included into an accountability system that you've collected enough data to test it, to make sure that we're getting accurate data, that we've worked all of the bugs out.
Okay.
You want that all worked out before it goes into your accountability system. So that, we're in that process now. And if you also refer back to our ESSA plan and those stakeholder conversations, if you remember, we had a B and a C for
Right.
items that we wanted to, that stakeholders told us at that time. And then, of course, as Dr. Boyd has said, you know, we're always reaching out and listening to see what other things are coming up that we need to study. But we're in a good place that we have a little time to study the
Right.
data and test it to see how reliable it's going to be, and give you ideas of what the impact of that would be to add data or make any changes to our accountability system in the future.
Yeah.
But we don't want to be changing every year.
No. Have you thought about which indicators are most likely, I guess, to be implemented in the future? Has it
Well,
come along that far yet?
I think we're going to have to let the data drive us. And so that's why we need to, you know, just like we tell schools, be data-driven.
Right.
We all have to be data-driven in our accountability system. We need to be confident the data are telling us something, and that the data is helping us to differentiate support to schools. And so we can put a whole lot of information that just tells us the same thing that something else told us.
Right.
So we have to be really thoughtful, and that's what we want to do. We want to continue these conversations, keep studying the data, and then come back and make a data-driven decision together about any changes that we make. And so if you think back to our reasoning for why we went with the value-added growth model, the reason we wanted to have that growth model was because it informed us differently than achievement informed us. And our previous growth models kind of told us the same thing, right? So why put two things in there that tell you the same thing? We want to have different lenses to put together into an accountability system that gives us a good well-rounded view of a school. And so I think that's the places we need to think about, is what parts are missing that give us a better, well-rounded view of a school for accountability.
Okay, good. Does anyone have a question or a comment?
I do.
Okay.
First of all, there was an acronym, CTE, I'm not familiar with that.
CTE is the career tech.
Okay. The second thing is, we were talking about expanding into looking at teacher absences. One of the concerns that I have seen is also the quality of substitutes. And with the, for example, comparing it to childhood education, or, it's not daycare anymore, can we get substitutes where it's not a daily babysitter anymore? That, getting people that are,
So, that's an interesting proposal. I don't know that we would get approval for any kind of substitute data in an accountability system.
well, and I can understand that might be a ripple effect,
Sure.
but I just want to put that on the radar.
So I think it's something certainly that we can look at and study, and in the future begin to figure out what do we know about our substitutes. Right now, we would even have to go back and see what kind of data we collect on substitutes, because in many school districts, they use a third-party vendor. So I don't know that, I don't think we would have any data on that at all within our system. So I'll put subs on a list to talk about. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. All right, good job. All right, so now we're gonna look at assessment. Ms. Worsham? That's you? Okay. Ms. Kaufman?
Sorry, didn't recognize my name as assessment. Hope is traveling today, and so we've been texting back and forth, and basically what she would have reported today is that the alignment study has been completed. They brought in numerous teachers, stakeholders to work through that process. I can't tell you about it because I was not there, but she was very pleased with the work. The alignment study report has been shared with our TAC, our Technical Advisory Committee. They've reviewed it, given her guidance about what the next steps to do, and she does plan to publish a report soon.
Okay. Any questions on assessment?
Make them easy.
So you think overall she was pleased with the results? Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think so, and I think the things that they highlighted that they need to work on are the things that they will work on.
Okay.
So she'll come back and give us a full report and a plan of what she plans to do with the information.
Do you know if ACT is gonna be involved in the future as far as working on what needs to be done, or is it all
Yes.
gonna be on our part?
Hope will take, yes,
I see.
yes. Yes, they will all be together at the table to
Okay,
get anything resolved.
okay. Anyone have questions about assessment? Thank you. I know you had to do a fill-in, but you did a good job. Wait just a minute. Good morning. We are on item 2C, Educator Equity and Effectiveness. Dr. Bailey.
Okay,
Good morning.
hello, hey, how are you doing? I'm good. I believe, actually, this is my first official presentation since being on the job now for about, how many weeks have I been here? I don't know, 15, I don't know, it's
Well,
hard to keep up.
congratulations. Well,
Hard to
we're
keep
an
up,
easy
so,
group.
so be gentle.
We're an easy
And,
group.
But anyway, no, I've got a great team, and we've been doing lots of wonderful things for education, and so I'm excited to be here, so thanks for this. Want to give you a few updates. Of course, you've already, I'm sure, looked at our report that we created, and it was a little bit long, so obviously I didn't want to do that, and Deb said I had about 5 minutes, and I like to talk, so I'm going to try to make it quick. And so anyway, we put together a little PowerPoint presentation, and it basically addresses the written report, but it's just briefer. And so, of course, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Of course, I've got some of my team members here, or if we can't answer them, we'll get you the answers, okay? And so we'll go ahead and get started then. So, Okay, we wanted to put together some goals, because anytime I make a presentation and we talk about our plans and things like that, I think it's important to talk about goals. You know, why do you have a plan, and what are you trying to address and accomplish? And so, of course, in our section, in our division of our ESSA plan, we have about 5 goals that we'd like to address. And of course, the first one is to just examine, we've talked this morning already about collecting data and how important that is, and we sure look at a lot of it here across all the division, but especially in ours as well. I've been looking at that, I think, every day I've been here. But we're looking at regarding our teacher recruitment and retention trends. We do a lot in our division to obviously recruit teachers, and we not only want to get good teachers, but we want to keep them, and we want to provide them support. And of course, we want to analyze the student access to have well-prepared, effective teachers in the classrooms and leaders in our school buildings and in the districts. And so that's one of our goals, is to work really hard on doing that. Also provide licensing levels that encourage teachers to lead from the classroom, resulting in retaining our teachers, especially in our hard-to-staff areas that we're facing across the entire state of Arkansas. Also, we want to improve the skills of our educators, and so we're doing some work, and we're looking at new and innovative ways that we can improve upon and enhance the skills of all of our educators, and inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Also promote our communication and collaboration to ensure that all students have equitable access to effective teachers and leaders. We want every child to have the best teacher that he or she can have in that classroom, and that's a huge responsibility that we have. Also, cultivate our local talent and create pathways. And so that's what we're doing, is creating pathways to educator profession with our early career experience, and extend support through college and into the workforce. And you know, as we looked at this, and I worked with our team, you know, I told them, I said, you know, there's no better time to be an educator than right now. We are creating all kinds of pathways, and I told them there's really no reason why, if you want to teach, that you can't be a teacher. And so that's really exciting to me. The next thing I want us to look at and talk a little bit about is our workforce data. And of course, we have increased enrollment. Of course, you can see that in your packet. But our enrollment has increased. Of course, we're always a little bit behind. You know, that's how we run. Our data sometimes comes in a year behind. But we have increased our enrollment for traditional and our alternative educator prep programs. And I think that's to attribute because we are opening up those pathways and allowing people to become educators more so now than, say, even 10 years ago. We've also increased our alternative prep completers over the previous year. And like I said, we're opening up doorways and pathways for them to not only enroll but also to complete our programs. And like I talked about on our goals on the first slide there, students that are from high poverty and high minority students that are in those schools and in those districts, you know, it's our job, and I take that very seriously. You know, we want to work on, we've got some areas there, sometimes they experience inexperienced teachers, and we want to give those inexperienced teachers the support and the training that they need. Also, they sometimes have a greater rate of teacher attrition, and teachers teaching outside their field of study. And so there again, that's why they need us, and they need that support, and they need that training. And just to give you some of our alternative programs, we have Apple, and some of you, I know you're probably familiar with that. And we have MAT. We also have ABCTE, which is, if you're not familiar with that, it's American Board for the Certification of Teacher Excellence is what that stands for. Sometimes we throw out acronyms, and I know when I came to the State Department, I thought I knew all kinds of acronyms. And Sandra gave me a list, I think, of about 100, and I said, you are kidding me. Mm-hmm. And so I'll be honest, I'm still learning some myself, and I've been in education 28 years, and I'm still learning lots of things. We have Arkansas Teacher Corps, Teach for America, Provisional Professional Teaching License. And so those are just some of those if you're not familiar with them. And so then our next slides, as we address some of these areas and some of these things that our team is extremely focused on to give all students equitable access. And so we'll go ahead and look. Here's some of the things that we're doing. And so in our educator prep section of our division, of course, I just mentioned Apple, but we have micro-credentialed pilot for our Apple One cohort, where we've had over 200 plus teachers this spring working on that. And of course, we're getting ready to prepare a report for you in June that will be compiled of results and all kinds of data, and also include our next steps. So we're looking forward to putting all that together in the month of June, when we've had some time to see about that. Also, we have teacher residency programs. Right now, we only have one going with East End, but we're also working on about 3 others, and so we're hoping to grow that. Also, there's one other thing, and I'm real excited about this one, because I know when I was visiting with Andy and Sandra as we were working on this, I said, I can remember back when I was a teacher in the classroom, and that's been a few days ago, but I can remember I had some wonderful paraprofessionals, and back then they couldn't, that's what they were doing, and a lot of times they couldn't afford to go back to school or for whatever variety of reasons that they had. Well, now we've opened up that pathway to allow them to do that, and we've got some great parapros and that are being able to become teachers. And so I think that's awesome. I'm so glad. There's 2 pathways they can do that right now. They can do a degree completion or a licensing program. Of course, I have more information in our packet about that. We have shortage areas. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but some of our shortage areas are art, agriculture, library media, mathematics, music, physics, computer science, chemistry, English language arts, Spanish, French, special education, and family and consumer science. And so as you can see, we have a lot of shortage areas. So like I said earlier, there's no reason, if you want to teach, we can find a spot for you and provide you the support and the encouragement and the training that you can be an effective teacher in the state of Arkansas. And then we have, when we talk about certification and licensure, I'm real excited about this. We have what's called the Career Continuum, and we implemented it just very recently, so I'm not going to stand up here and tell you I'm an expert at it, because I'm not. But we're all learning, and we have designations, and we have teachers, which is very exciting. We have teachers right now that are meeting this designation, and we're excited for them. But we have what's called early career, which is our educators that are receiving the designation. There are novice, there are beginning ones that are first 1, 2 to 3 years. Also career professional educator designation, which are 3 years and beyond, and they have verification that they are an effective teacher. Of course, and we have lead professional and a master professional designation that these teachers can earn once they meet certain criteria, and they can get that designation on their license. And we have teachers today that are meeting these expectations and getting these designations on their license, and they're very excited about it, and we're excited to make those recognitions to those teachers. Of course, the purpose of the Career Continuum is to elevate our profession as educators by providing a pathway, and we talked about pathways this morning, but giving teachers a pathway to be school leaders, because there's a lot of teachers, and I've met a lot of them over the years, and they'll say, I don't know how. Back when I was a principal, they would say, well, you know what, I want to be a leader, and I feel like I'm a leader, but there's no way in the world I want to be a school principal. And I said, and back then, there were things they could do, but not necessarily what you can do today. And so it's exciting, because today, you can do that. You can be a leader, and not necessarily be the school principal, but you can be a leader in your building and do lots of exciting things for kids today. And so anyway, so that's one of our purposes for that. We're currently in a pilot phase. Our micro-credentials and programs are leading to designations, and if you need some more information about that, of course, you can look in your packet, or we've got about 3 people in our division, Megan, Joan, and Melissa, and they are really working hard on the designations, and so I appreciate all the work that they've done on that and are doing on that. Also, another barrier, I guess, to help or to remove a barrier is something that we've been working on in our division called Opportunity Culture Schools, and we've got some school districts that are taking advantage of this. And we appreciate them for that. And of course, I'm learning more and more. I get to go actually next week to Charlotte, North Carolina, to visit some schools, districts there in North Carolina. And so I get to see opportunity culture in action. So I'm very excited to get to go and see some of this in action firsthand at some schools and some school districts that we're going to. So as you can see, we piloted this in 2018 with our North Little Rock School District. And of course, that was started before I arrived. And so we have Forest City and Lead Hill and Lincoln up there that are doing this year. And then Carlisle and Crossett and Cutter Morning Star are very interested in getting going in the very near future with this as well. So like I said, this is new. We have a lot of new things going on, and but it's exciting in the teaching profession. Also, something else that we're trying to do to help our students and help our schools and our leaders and teachers, something called Leadership Quest. And we have our total attendance for these. We have 1,195 that are participating in March and April. And we have total districts are 187 school districts that had principals attend. And I believe we've been doing Leadership Quest, if I'm right on that. This is our third year, is that right, Sandra? I want to be right on that. Okay, so this is our third year to do the Leadership Quest, and these, I think it's going very well. We're hearing from principals and co-op directors, and so providing lots of leadership for our principals, because as we all know, the building principal has a very powerful impact on what happens in the schools. And so we have to have our principals well-trained and give our principals the support that they need, as well as our teachers. Also, with our novice teacher program, the people that are working to become those brand new teachers, the retention and recruitment facilitators that are housed at all of our co-ops, 21 currently. The purpose for this is to mentor and support our first-year educators. And I was fortunate enough, of course, I've been tied up a lot with legislation and at the Capitol, but I was fortunate enough to get to go with Ms. Hurst and Mr. Sullivan. He's our new director, by the way. And just recently, 3 weeks on the job. We all got to go very recently to our Southwest co-op and meet with the retention and recruitment facilitators, because I had not yet had the opportunity to do that, and I was not really sure how all that was going and what their job entailed. And so I was very excited to hear about all the things that they're doing in this mentoring program. And I think I asked them some questions, and so we're awaiting some responses. So I'm real excited to hear from all of the co-ops on this and then that helps me as the assistant commissioner in our division to work with my team so that we can provide them more help from the state on what we can do to help them, to help our brand new teachers be the most successful that they can be. So we're awaiting those results, so on that. But they gave us a lot of things that they're doing to help our new teachers, and I believe it's going, from what I heard at least that day and some of the things that we're already seeing, it's going very well over how we used to do the mentoring back several years ago, even when I was in the school districts. And so it seems to be going a lot better, and so that's good news to me to hear that and how effective that's working on how they're doing that now. Of course, we can always make things better, and that's why I asked them the questions that I did. And so how can we work to make things even better and more successful for these brand new teachers just starting out? Because I know they need the support and they need lots of help with that. Of course, I wanted to end, and of course, I'll take time if you got any questions, but I'm really big on quotes, and I send our staff and our entire division a quote of the week every week. I've done that even since I was a school principal, and to try to get us focused and thinking about our week, and I really believe in this. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of a good teacher. And so anyway, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I know that was probably longer than 5 minutes, Deb, and but I did our presentation. Our report was about 11 pages. I know you didn't want to hear me read all of that, and but I will try my best if you have any questions, or write them down and get back to you.
Okay,
So.
questions over here?
I've got something. I just want to, first of all, I want to commend you on your team. I mean, you guys, I have known you and worked with each one of you for a while now, and you've been very successful in all the positions that you've been in. So I have no doubt that we're in schools. What, can you kind of describe to me what that looks like and how, I know the goal, but how do we accomplish that goal?
And I'll let Miss Hurst, if you don't, would you mind coming up? Because she's been here, and I'll tell you, she has been a rock for me and helping me and guide me. But I think she could do a lot better job of that, just going into kind of the history of it, since I haven't been here that long. Don't mind.
Well, Dr. Jeffcoat, good to see you again. So Opportunity Culture Schools really, and the goal is to extend the reach of an effective teacher to more students. So the way there's probably 6 or 7 different models, but one of the models that North Little Rock's using is where you hire a lead teacher, and that lead teacher then has under their wings a novice teacher, could even be a student intern, where there is a relationship built between the university so that they can be, kind of like a residency program in a way, but we've got more of that happening. And then you also could have another career teacher that's experienced on the team. You could even have a para. So some of our schools have gotten waivers to have paras being in classrooms, and now we have that para-pro pathway. So the idea is to really let that lead teacher mentor all of those teachers with less experience, and they become the student of record for the whole team. So that's how the allocations of funds can be shifted around. But if, now you're hiring someone that you're gonna pay more money to, where you're not paying as much money to maybe a para, or a teacher that's a student intern. But so those involve waivers. So we work with our waiver committee, in the schools. Like the 3 that are coming on, they all have chosen pretty much the same model that North Little Rock has. But if you ever want to go visit, their 6th grade is up and running. The 7th and 8th started this year. They're taking it to their high school next year. So it's really an exciting model to watch because it is a true PLC, like in action. You get to see this lead teacher taking the responsibility, and pretty neat.
It's a great concept.
I saw in your report that you had data from, I think it was North Carolina, on opportunity cultures. Have you got any data from Arkansas kids yet?
So North Little Rock has been using the Summit platform, and I'm not sure if they're going to continue that or not, but the information that they have gotten from the Summit, they have already shown growth. Oh, sorry, Deb. Thank you. They've already shown considerable growth. I don't have the exact numbers, but I could get that. They
Okay.
love sharing that information. As a matter of fact, they were highlighted in Public Impact, one of their articles about how much growth they had shown at North Little Rock, the 6th grade in
Okay.
particular. So they'll have some baseline data from the 7th and 8th this year to make a comparison for next year.
Okay, good, good.
But it really is, it's about that mentoring, and that's another thing, their focus is teachers mentoring students as well. So the training emphasizes a lot of mentoring to go with students one-on-one. So when you take that teacher that is a lead teacher, they are on a 50-50 model. That's 50% of the time they have to stay in the classroom and teach. The other 50% of the time, they do the planning, they do co-teaching, and they work with students one-on-one. So when you look at a lot of our school districts, how we've had to use people to do interventions that may not be as equipped
Right.
as a lead teacher could be, now that lead teacher gets to be the interventionist. So it's a pretty neat model.
Great concept.
Okay, good. Any other questions over here? Okay, what about?
There was a lot of information.
Yeah.
So I wrote down some things, but there were just little questions about kind of stuff like that. I wasn't familiar with some of it and the licensure designations and kind of what that meant. Yeah, so that's really all I had.
Well, and it is, and I'm just gonna say this.
Okay.
The information is just like, wow, all that. But what's really neat about this is I think Dr. Bailey said earlier, it all goes back to recruitment and retention, and it really does work together as a system. It looks like a lot of little things, but if you look at Opportunity Culture School model, just the model itself, it does every one of those things we just talked about,
Wow.
or that Dr. Bailey just talked about. So, but you just kind of, we've had to pull from different resources to make all of it happen.
Right.
So it may be because many of these options were not available 4 or 5 years ago, and now we have a system in place, and probably the communication piece of it is important. And I know that you're working on that to try to get that information out, but to a lot of us, there are some new options, but they're very good options for our students and for our state.
Definitely.
And I'll address that too. One of the things too, and it's not really in this plan, and I'm not trying to get off track, I promise, but it's just, you know, for me coming from being a teacher and being a principal at both levels and also being a superintendent, and when I come in to be in this role, it's kind of like a new set of eyes. And I know one thing that we've really been working hard on with all this information, as you see, is one thing that I want to be sure that we are doing is communicating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when I work with my team, I've told them, I said, guys, when I was a teacher, I wish I would have heard this. When I was a principal, I would have liked to have heard this from the state. When I was a superintendent, I would have liked to have heard this. So these are some things that we are really working on to do the most effective job that we can do about providing communication. So you will start seeing some things very, very soon from our division about anything new coming out, that we're going to do our best job communicating that in several venues and avenues to do that. And one thing real quick, and then I'm going to hush and sit down, but one thing that I noticed going back to the retention and recruitment, those folks at the co-ops, one thing that I heard, and I think that is just so vital across, not only with their positions, but with the teachers in the classrooms and the principals working with them, and even the superintendents, how feedback is so important. Feedback is important for teachers to give students. Feedback is important for principals to give to those teachers and helping to make them and to be effective in that classroom. And so we are working, my team and I are working on how we can help support that entire process about how important feedback is. And so that will be coming soon. So anyway, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Any other questions over here? Anyone? Just one final question.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, we realize that teachers are the most important thing that you can have in the classroom, and
Yes, ma'am.
and hopefully through all of the ESSA process that districts are becoming more aware of where they fall as far as experience, inexperience. Sometimes just seeing that in black and white helps. Are you seeing any movement at all in some of these districts that are having so many inexperienced or teachers teaching out of area? Are you seeing any movement at all in some of those districts yet? You aren't?
We get a lot of interest. We get a lot of interest from those districts because when we used to work like as a separate, like with school improvement, we would go with visits with school improvement. We had a lot of schools saying this is where our problem areas, we need help with recruiting and retaining. So when we started these I hate to call them initiatives, but that's really I guess what they are. But when we started these, there was a lot of interest. Maybe this one would work for us, but we have to really move slow to go fast because the capacity building has to happen.
Right.
So you really have to be able to identify those lead teachers and really build up their expertise to be able to build capacity and sustainability. So we already are working with Pine Bluff is one. It's not calling it opportunity culture, but just with the teacher leadership model. So we have several districts that we are working with just kind of at the awareness level and really at trying to help, hire those lead teachers and then train them so that we can put them in those positions.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a,
So you are seeing the movement then?
yes.
Good,
Yes,
good.
we get a lot.
Okay, all right, great. This information, I know, hours and hours and hours of work, and then just to implement, y'all are doing a great job. So we're very proud of your team. So just keep up the great work.
They've done a lot of work
Yeah.
before I got there.
Yeah. Are you having any plans to present this to the full board at any time, or?
I can if y'all would like to. We'll do
I'm
whatever
sure
the
that would be
board
something that
like
they
to
would
do.
be interested in, because I think it's at the heart of a lot of what is that we want to improve in our state. So I'm sure they would be interested in the information.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you, thank you.
Good job.
All right, English learners, Ms. Kerr. Good morning.
lower that down. I'm glad to be with you guys this morning here in Little Rock. And the English Learner Title III Advisory Group we keep meeting. There's so much going on in our field all the time. We've been in testing season, so that's also occupied several of our members' time as well as mine and Alan Lytle's. But we did meet Friday, February 15th via Zoom, and then we've had some email communication since then as well. The main thing that we've talked about at that meeting recently was about the professional judgment rubric and exit criteria. And we're in the process of releasing an implementation survey this week, and they gave me some feedback to edit it so that it was more user-friendly to the districts who are completing that. And our goal for that survey is to find out, well, how are the new exit criteria working for you? In summary, for you to remind all of us about what are the exit criteria. One is that the students have to score proficient on ELPA 21 as their overall score. Plus, they have to have 2 data points that demonstrate that they have literacy in the content areas. And that can be any content area, and it can be any data point that you might use for any kid. So there's a wide range of assessment options that they can use to do that. And they just have to have 2 that demonstrate that the child is at grade level compared to their English-only peers. So we're going to find out how that is going and maybe see if we need to adjust those. I did provide them updated guidance from the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Ed, regarding entrance and exit criteria. And in summary, we're basically doing what the updated guidance said. So there wasn't anything there that was alarming and saying, oh, we didn't do something right in creating our exit criteria. So that's good news for us. Then I also provided them the CCSSO framework on exiting English learners with disabilities from English learner status. That is a long-term project for us, for the nation. It is not an easy solution to come up with. Those are the students who, they have disabilities and they're also an English learner. How do they meet those exit criteria? Because bottom line, they have to have the same exit criteria. So how do you support them in such a way that they can meet the exit criteria? We don't have an alternate English language proficiency assessment yet. We're working on that. It's a few years out. Once that comes up, then students who would qualify for an alternate assessment, we could use those scores. But right now, we still have to use the scores that they can get on the regular ELPA 21 assessment. There's some different scenarios that they talk about in that framework, and we'll continue looking at that and rolling out the information that's in that document to districts so that they can keep that in mind when they're working with their English learner students with disabilities. We are doing a lot of work in the state right now, some prep work around English learner students with disabilities. We've had a task force working on creating a resource guide for districts to help them know what do you do from pre-referral, meaning the kids are in your classroom, how do you support them, to intervention time, to potential referral, and then once they're referred, how do you work with them if they're an English learner, students with disabilities. We're actually having a kickoff of that training on May 17th to ADE staff about what that support will look like, and then we're doing a pilot training in the summer. And the lady who helped write the CCSSO framework on exiting ELs with disabilities from English learner status, that is a very long title. Dr. Soo Young Park from the University of Texas in Austin, she is actually working with a collaborative team here at the department. We're a part of a project on collaboratively working on developing these resources for districts. So we're getting real close to being able to push it out, but we're in the writing very hard stage on the resource guide. That's not quite exactly about the professional judgment rubric, but it is about the ELs with disabilities. It all works together. None of these things are in isolation. The next thing we've talked about is we are revamping the Title III formula grant application. Title III is the federal money that goes to school districts who have enough students to generate $10,000 of a federal Title III grant and/or to consortiums of districts who combined together would have enough students to generate those kinds of funds. Bottom line, our application needs to describe the base English learner services that are required by Title VI, Lau versus Nichols, Castaneda versus Picard, and this is also required as part of our Arkansas Standards for Accreditation. So basically, we need to know, what are you doing to serve English learners? Then we need the application to clearly outline the 3 required activities for Title III, which are that you're enhancing your language instruction educational program, that you are providing professional development for teachers or administrators or staff. I mean, there's a wide base that can have professional development regarding English learners, and that you are engaging in family and community engagement specifically around your English learners. So they have to show how they're going to do that, and then there are several additional activities they can do, which will be in the application. I can't remember them all at the moment. The budget then must clearly align with the activities they've chosen. So we've been looking at several different states' applications. We thought, let's learn from each other, and I'm part of a national board now that I have access to several people, and we go to collaborative meetings, so we share work all the time. So we looked at several, and we ran across Indiana's English Learner Plan and Title III application. Indiana, in some ways, is similar to Arkansas in that we rely on federal law to guide districts. We don't have a state-specific law around English learners, and that's okay right now. We both have English learner funds from the state level that basically say you get English learner funds for identified English learners, and you have to spend it appropriately. That's the law. And so we have very similar parameters. And there is a lot of federal law to back up what goes along with English learners and what districts are expected to do. So we're revamping that to be Arkansas specific. And when I ran it by the advisory group, the general consensus was that it was a good outline and that it was more specific than we've had in the past, and it was fairly clear. So we're moving forward with that, and I'm working with Alan Lytle tomorrow on that project exactly. So we're excited to move that forward this spring. The other thing that I updated them on and got a little feedback on is our Standards for Accreditation monitoring process. Part of the Standards for Accreditation, Standard 2J, is around English language services. The first one there is that every district has to conduct a home language usage survey for every student upon that student's initial enrollment in their district to identify students that might need to be screened for ESOL services. And then, when they've identified students, they must provide a language instruction educational program. So monitoring has begun on this process of select districts. When the monitoring unit lets me know, here's who we're monitoring, we're reaching out to these districts for now. So we've developed a protocol for how we do that. It's basically, I reach out to the district and just say, here are the standards for accreditation regarding English learner services. Would you please send me a copy of your home language survey and describe how you use it? And then would you please describe the program you offer for, and I put a number of students because I know how many students they have from Cycle 2. Describe what you're doing for your students. If you have a handbook, please attach it. And then we request a few sample records of students. Not very many, just to see where they're at. If all that's fine, then that's good, and if not, then we know where we can provide some technical assistance and support to them so that they can do what's best for kids. And so far, it's working well. I think it's been very useful to the districts that have been in it to find out what's working correctly, and then I know they've appreciated when we've been able to say, you don't need to give that home language survey every year to every kid, just every time they're new. Things like that we're helping correct. Or one district didn't realize we had a new one. So I'm like, okay, we have a new one, you need to use this one. So it's just an opportunity to help support districts in how they're serving English learners. Until we have an English learner plan that districts submit and Title III plans, that's the protocol that we're following. We have a meeting scheduled for April 15th, and at that meeting, we'll go over the results from the professional judgment rubric exit criteria implementation survey, as well as some data that we're trying to gather on students who met the ELPA 21 proficiency cut, but were not exited. Seeing what other data we have, like comparing looking at their ACT Aspire scores, any other data that we may have at the state level to see, is this looking right? So just to see what it says. I don't know what it says yet. We're going to find out. So, and to share updates on the Title III application. So that's where we are right now. Or do you have any questions?
Any questions over here?
I have a question.
Okay.
You talked about when the student comes into a school that they're assessed. Is that per school or per district? So if they're within a district and move to a new building, are they reassessed?
No, it's per district. That's a good question. It's every time they enroll in a new district, and I know it says on the standard school, it is at the district level. They have to, every time they initially enroll in a district, they have to have that home language survey. But there's also, we have on our English Learner webpage, there's the Arkansas Entrance and Exit Procedures Manual, and in there's a section that talks about transfer students within Arkansas. You are expected to contact prior districts to find out what their records were regarding home language surveys. Because it doesn't matter where the home language survey said a language other than English. Once you know there's a language other than English, we always know. And we always must then ensure that their English proficiency is at a level that they can perform successfully in the classroom. And if it's not, then we intervene.
So is there anything in place as kids move through a district that they know at the next building?
If it's in district, that's a district process. And we can help work with them to develop them. I know, Melissa knows, and several districts who have multiple buildings, they do have processes to pass that information on from district to district, where they have a district ESL database so that they keep in communication, because this is a mobile population in many places. So that is something, though, that districts do need to work on, a protocol for within the district of how you share that information between buildings. Because once they're in a district, they should only be screened once. We don't screen them every time. That's not good for the kid. It's a waste of money, too.
Any other questions over here?
Just a comment. I want to say out loud that I'm very thankful for the rewriting of the Title III application and the alignment of not only the standards of accreditation and federal law, but with budgeting and then growth of the program. Because I think that part was huge, to look at what is your base program and then what are you doing to grow that program. And so I just want to commend you on that and your team.
Thank you. It's a learning process for everybody. We're revamping, and it's all good.
And I like the word alignment, that we are starting to align more and more of these things instead of having little silos of things, but we're all working together. It's the best thing for kids. Best thing for kids. Questions over here, Dr. Sheffield?
Just one question. I know you had mentioned that we're currently using the ELPA 21, but we'll have an option to use an alternate assessment. What does that look like? What is the alternate assessment? Maybe other states that are using?
We don't have, there is one alternate assessment out there with WIDA, but we're not using that one. An alternate assessment, it's similar to how the content area assessments, is it DLM?
DLM,
Right, DLM?
DLM.
Okay, there's an alternate content assessment. The alternate one for ELP will be similar to that, in that it's designed for the 1% of students who are unable to participate in the regular assessment. And, I haven't seen exactly how this one will look, but it will still have a listening, reading, writing, and speaking component, and it'll be measuring it in ways that those students are capable of demonstrating those skills. There is a new set of alternate ELP standards now.
Okay.
Those came out this fall. So districts can begin working with those standards, and then there's going to be an assessment developed to go along with those standards.
So maybe by the end of next year?
Oh, it'll probably be a 5-year process.
Okay.
3 to
Okay.
5 years. I mean, to develop an assessment is a very long process.
Yeah.
I have learned that now, having helped develop ELPA 21. I was working on that before I came to the department as a representative from a district, and that was definitely a learning experience to see how much work and time goes into developing these standardized assessments.
Sure. Thank you.
Any more questions from the group? Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you. Ms. Kaufman, I have one more question before we move on from this section of our report this morning. I know you mentioned last time that you were looking at adding an advisory group for special ed. How is that process going?
It's been slow.
Okay.
As you know, our special ed office was out monitoring school districts, so they have been tied up. But we need to let them finish that process, and then they already have some committees that are in place, and we're just going to work with the already in place committees. Our team has been meeting with special ed to stay in conversation about how we're supporting our schools that have been identified in needing support for students with special needs. So we'll continue to work that together. We're going to have a plan to present to you soon, and
Okay.
so we're working, but
Okay.
we're not quite where we want to be yet.
Okay, and one other question, and I know it's not part of our ESSA plan anywhere. Have we given any thought at all on trying to do some monitoring of the dyslexia and how it's going in districts, and maybe pulling this in somehow or another to make districts more aware of the importance of it?
So dyslexia is not a part of ESSA.
Right.
Other than, it certainly affects your reading and English language, art, and math scores, science scores.
Everything.
It affects everything. It is one of our required standards and standards for accreditation, and we are monitoring for that now.
Okay,
So that's on the state side.
okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Kaufman before we move on? Okay, good. All right, let's look at communication with communities. Ms. Moore. Good morning.
Good morning, Chelsea Moore, Public School Accountability. Thank you for having us today. Let's see here. All right, I'm here to report to you on our communication with the communities for our report cards. As you'll see on the screen, we have a series of outputs such as flyers, formal communications, and then social media communications, and then a series of inputs such as surveys and focus groups. So to kind of begin with those formal communications, what we're talking about there are 2 commissioners' memos, one that's for the schools for their private viewing period, and then a follow-up commissioner's memo for the public release of the report card. And that public release will be April 15th. There will also be a press release. All of these things are in development right now and in their final stages of approval. To accompany each of those, there's a series of one-page flyers. Those flyers are, designed to be blasted throughout the community, and then the social media posts kind of pair with those flyers. So to tell you what they are, the first flyer we've created is an invitation to connect. It's kind of like that invitation to the party, the who, what, when, where, why. What is this report card? Why do we want you there? Who should be there? And really it's for everyone. The second flyer that we've created is how you can access the report card. That flyer will pair with a series of a Powtoons video, which describes step-by-step how you access the video, and then also social media iPad videos of individuals explaining how they accessed that report card. One of the other flyers is ways you can use report card data. This flyer is one of my personal favorites because the focus of this flyer is how a bunch of individuals can use that information to move improvement efforts within their schools and district. That flyer is targeted towards parents, students, community members, and educators. Finally, there is a ways you can improve the report card flyer, and this is probably Ms. Kaufman's favorite. We are interested in getting a lot of input on how the community perceives our report card, how we can continue to improve it in the future. That flyer includes some steps that we've already taken to improve our report card, and it also outlines ways that we're soliciting feedback. So that includes the survey mentioned on this slide, and also the focus groups. The survey has been developed, and some of the things that we're looking to gain in that survey is information about how individuals perceive the value of different measures within that report card. Was the information they were looking for easy to find? Was it easy to understand? We also want to know that individual's role in education. Are they a parent? Are they a community member? Are they a student? Do they work here at ADE? Who's looking at our report card? And then also we want to know race and ethnicity of those people who are viewing the report card, as well as the level of education. And finally, we want to know what county in which that person resides. That way we understand whether or not we're getting a wide representation of our state when we collect this data. As part of the focus groups that are mentioned on the final bullet, we will be attending there's a community reading event at which we'll set up and try to solicit survey feedback. There's the parent and family engagement facilitators and coordinators will soon be trained on our framework and toolkit for family and community engagement. And as part of those sessions, we'll be soliciting feedback on report cards. That family and community engagement team, as they're traveling across the state, will be stopping for a couple of other focus groups. Those have yet to be determined, but just kind of throughout the community where the people are. We're also going to the Rural Development Conference to set up and solicit feedback. There's a wide range of individuals scheduled to attend there, mayors, legislators, business owners. And then finally, of course, the ADE Summit, where we can get just a wealth of information from our educators. So with all of that being said, our intention with this effort is to make sure that our stakeholders know that we want to honor their questions, their concerns, while also advocating our tool as a tool for improvement for our schools. Can I answer any questions, or can I take your comments?
Any questions over here?
Okay, I've asked a question for each group, so I think I will here too.
Okay.
So the feedback that's going to be received, I know that's going to be on the state level. You'll receive a lot of content, but is there any way for individual school districts to receive the feedback from their communities?
So that's a great question. We haven't explored that. I think I'll jot that down.
Yeah, that's a great question, yeah. Because, that would be information that you could use. Absolutely, absolutely. I think everybody is anxious to see report cards and see what they're going to look like and see the data and start using the data to improve opportunities for students, and that's the main thing. So we're excited about the future. Next few weeks, we'll all be watching our computers for the first opportunity that we could see report cards. So thank you. Oh, preview today. Okay. Okay,
we appreciate you continuing to push that message. Once we start pushing our message, if you just continue to share it, we appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So we are super excited about the report card, and as Chelsea has described, our requirement under ESSA is to ensure that our report card is easy to understand. And if you were to print the report card out, Arjit, it's about 60 pages per school? Oh, now
wow.
more than 100.
That's not-
So the interesting thing about a report card is there are a lot of federal requirements and there are a lot of state requirements. And so our survey is not to say, what do you want us to put in or take out? They're required. What we're trying to figure out is how do we present that in a way that makes sense to the end user? So this work is a culmination of so many units. Our Regents team has just been amazing to put this into My School Info and make it easily accessible. The whole accountability team, people from all over the division are working constantly to put this in. Denise's team has run the data for us. So we're in My School Info. And if you notice, first of all, I want to bring to your attention that when you go in and you type in a school's name, like I did, my alma mater, Hoxie High School, you see an information tab, statistics tab, school rating tab, and report card. School rating is that one quick accountability at a glance, remember? But on the report card, that's where I want to draw your attention to it, is now we've combined what we're really reporting all together. So the report card is a piece that we'll open in a minute, but this is where your ESSA school index will live, and you know, in October, we'll have a new one. And so that report card will start to build over time. When the discipline data are available, it will be put in. Waivers are always updated, so you can click on those and see what waivers the school has. Part of that is the reporting to the public. So what I'm excited today to do is open up school report card. And, oh, are you still on the private side? They'll work on it. So while we're doing that, if you remember in a report card, it has, when you open that up, there's some little red tabs that run along the left-hand side. So that we have a vocabulary of report card moving forward, we're calling those modules. So if you want to see the achievement module, you open that up and you'll see lots of data. There's report cards for the schools, there's a report card for the district, and report card for the state. And we've built a blueprint for our report card moving forward because there is so much data that's required to go into these systems that we have to really be all on the same page when we talk about it, or you just couldn't talk about it. I mean, there's just so much to look at. So there are a lot of new modules that are required. And so to help people understand what these modules mean, you'll see this new hover over feature. And that is a result of our stakeholder feedback from last spring when they said, hey, if you could explain what these things mean, it would make us make it faster and more user-friendly for us to understand these. The thing I need the public to understand the most about this is if you go into the ESSA School Index and you were to look at achievement, remember that's weighted achievement. But when you come into the report card, you just get the facts. There's no weighting. Their mobility students are included, and so as you read these little blurbs, you'll see us saying that over and over again. In the reporting, high mobility students are included. They're required under ESSA to be included in the reporting. So there are two separate pieces. There's that ESSA School accountability that is has weights. Some students are excluded according to our business rules. In the reporting on the report card, all kids are included and there are no weights. So it's just the facts. I want to go in and look at that. We're not going to open those today because I don't want anybody taking a screenshot because they're not ready to be public yet. Schools need to have a chance to look at them. But I wanted you to see, just as we kind of scroll through here, you've been used to achievement, but now you're seeing growth, English language proficiency for ELL, SQSS. We've had graduation rate before, but it was kind of embedded into the college piece. Now it's separated out. School performance, school environment, retention, and it kind of explains some of these things are state or federal requirements. And then as you go further down, you're going to see school expenditures, alternatively assessed, and then you're going to see our cross tabs. the crosstabs is a brand-new piece, and this is where you have to open the data up and look at it male, female. There's a whole lot of other sections or divisions of the data that have to be explained. We'll be interested to see people's response to this because right now we've put them just basically in PDF files, and we're trying to figure out going forward now what would make most sense for how they're visually represented. So the other thing is, as you go down on the previous 3 years at a glance data, we've used to have this report in a different place. And so over time, we're working to build those reports into this one system so we don't have people going to multiple places to find the data. They can go to one spot. The last thing I would say is the civil rights data collection. Right now, we're linking out to their website, but in the future, we have to go out, grab that data, and disaggregate it and put it back into our site. It's a requirement. We're not quite there yet, but we'll get there eventually. The other thing, on the page that he's on right now, if you'll go back up to the top, it's called the Overview tab that Dan is showing you right now, and as we just kind of scroll down that page, you're going to see, you kind of seen this look before, where you see some quick characteristics, but keep going. You're going to see now a whole lot of text, and those text have information. Arjun, we're going to have to see if we can link those, make those links live on there too. This text is just information that is required to be provided, and we've tried to word it in as user-friendly terms as we could. So we're interested for you to read that and say, what could we have done better to help the public understand what's on those. What's on the school and the district page look the same. On the state page, there's additional information as required.
The long-term goals section, is that going to give schools and districts that information on how they're progressing toward their long-term goals? Okay.
Yeah, and that's what, the long-term goals is what we just got the amendment on.
Right.
And so, yes, it's going to visually show you, how you're doing on track to meeting those goals.
Okay.
But, all of this is meant to be just a part of our commitment to transparency and to allow school districts and communities to get together and talk about what they need to work on. And we don't mean it to shame anyone, or it's just the facts.
And one more, the teacher quality and the retention, those are what we talked about earlier as far as
Retention is retention of students.
Okay, but the teacher quality then is the teacher, the inexperienced or teaching out of area, that sort of thing. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
So our plan, as Chelsea said, is to release this privately to our schools April 1st. At that time, the school's job is to go in and look at their individual reports and to let us know if we've put data in the wrong spot. I can't even imagine how our Regis team takes all of the data that Dr. Arola sends and makes it go into the right place on these reports. So the files are massive, as you can see by a school having 100+ pages when you put the report together. There will be some very special features at the top, if you'll scroll back up, Dan, that will allow school districts to export the data to either on Excel or a PDF and to share those reports. There's a requirement that school districts put or post their reports on their website, and so we want to make this very available to them. There's a new letter from the commissioner on there kind of outlining some of these new features. So we ask our school districts to go in and review these reports April 1st because we just need a whole bunch of sets of eyes on them before we put them out to the public and say, these are our reports. This is not a time for schools to go in and go, oh, I don't like my data. I want to change my data. That time is come and gone.
Right.
We're now to the publishing period And it's just about another set of eyes looking at it to say, oh, you've actually flipped these two pieces of data. We need to go in and reconnect them to the right place. So it is just that. It's that final editing stage to make sure everything is exactly right and the principal's correct, superintendent's correct, that all of that stuff that can be as accurate as possible to get it to the public. Then April 15th, we will release. We hope that school districts have already put together their communication plans. They've been reaching out to their community and they have opportunities to tell their story. That's the thing I think is awesome about the way we roll these things out is school districts don't need to be surprised with data. We've been talking about their data with them all along. They have this opportunity to get their communication plans together and start implementing them before the reports are made public. And so once they are made public, we would encourage the public to go in and look at these reports and to ask questions and to volunteer to be part of the committees for school improvement and other committees at the school if they're really invested in serving the needs of the school.
Yes.
As Chelsea said, we're going to put out some tools, but we really encourage school districts to develop their own plans, tell their story, and of course they can share those with us on hashtag Engagement Matters. Is that right? AR.
Okay.
Hashtag Engagement Matters AR. We love to share those best practice stories of how people are sharing their data and getting it out there. Members of the public, if they're watching, what they need to know about this is you can't break My School Info. So we encourage you to open up everything in it, click on it. You just can't break it. Just try. Just go ahead and try.
I see the tech people a little nervous, but they
I have confidence in our team that, and that's what, when we've been out talking to school boards and different people, and they'll say, well, I don't know how to navigate it. Just get in there and start clicking things. That's how we learned it, and that's how they'll learn it. So just click on things, ask
Well,
questions. We're happy to share.
Now that they have the hover bubbles, they won't have to click on everything. They can just read what that's about and
Yeah.
determine if that's what they want.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Right.
I like the hover bubbles.
I do
I
too.
think parents will appreciate that. I do like the crosstab too. I can't wait to see how we can really break down the data. I think that's going to be an interesting piece for us that we won't have to now go in and create that model. It's already going to be available
Yeah.
for us.
And so we'll be very interested, and I think our survey is going to give us a good starting point. Also, if there's something coming up or someplace that you know we need to go to get to a group of parents, community members, if it's possible, we'll try to add that to our list. Our plan is to make that a part of our continuous feedback loop, that every year when we put out the report card, or as we are able to put out components of that report card, that we conduct those focus groups and surveys to figure out what can we keep doing to help the public better understand this. It's advantageous for a school district to have an informed community so that they can truly support and understand what's going on in the school. They understand, why are you having a professional development day? Well, if they've been a part of the school improvement planning, they know why you're having a professional development day, and why you're buying a curriculum or instructional materials, or why you need to hire or eliminate some things. They know because they're part of the plan and they've seen the data. But likewise, if you're not out ahead of this and talking about the data, then people are they could draw the wrong conclusions about your school if you're not out there working your story of your school. So the last thing I'd finally like to say is, we heard this from one location. They said, well, our data's not accurate. And so we have a very tight process for data collection. We collect in cycle reports. I'm glad to have Dr. Jeffcoat right here to testify that our cycle reports are there's the opportunity to put your data in, to review your data. That's your corrections timeline, is to review your data with your team, and then once the superintendent certifies that data, it goes into the system, and we don't change it after that. So any data has been reviewed by the district and certified by the superintendent.
That is correct.
As
Some of that data, it's a lot of data. Some of those cycle reports, we spend a lot of time reviewing, but yeah, we absolutely have an opportunity to review every single report before it's submitted. And then we have opportunities to make corrections even after it is submitted if we have the need to do so.
So the data are correct to the best of all of our abilities. We do have 2 correction periods built into our timeline. The first correction period is once the assessments are taken. There is a correction period for schools to go in and justify why a student did not take an assessment. So in our system, we look at Dr. Jeff Coates' list of students and say, these students should take the assessment. And then anyone who doesn't, then we have that list, and the school district gets to go in and justify why. We have guidelines for what's an acceptable justification, what's unacceptable, and that's how you get your 95% tested. It's a very important number in the accountability world, is to have 95% tested. The second correction opportunity is in graduation rate. That will happen early fall, late summer, sometime in there, as soon as we can get the data all together. And the reason it takes so long is you have to always take in the summer graduates, so that we've given every kid an opportunity to be in those cohorts. And that's an opportunity for schools, districts to go in and say, yes, these are our students, or this is what happened to this student. Maybe we didn't have enough documentation in our system and we need to provide some additional documentation. The reason those 2 correction periods are in there is those are the only things that go into accountability that aren't already in cycle reports. So every bit of our data that goes into this accountability system that school districts are held accountable for, that their school rating is determined by, has been through a corrections period. So the data are accurate. Sometimes we don't like it.
Yeah.
It's like when I
That's the
stand on the
biggest deal.
scales. I don't like it,
Yeah.
but it's real.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions for the group about the report cards? Congratulations to your team and all the work that the really smart people over there did. But we thank
They're
you.
amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I know
They're
they
amazing.
are. They are. So we appreciate that. Okay, our next meeting, do you have information on that?
Yes. Dan, if you'll pull us back to our PowerPoint. So our recommendation is that our next meeting be Wednesday, August the 28th. It feels so far away, but it will be here so quickly. That's an opportunity. We think that'll be the first good time that we'll have all of our feedback from our focus groups and from the survey. We'll have many updates from our advisory teams. So we feel like that will be our first time, and plus we need a breather after the legislative session.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So any topics in particular that, let us know if that date's good for you,
Okay.
and that if it is, then anything that you would like to hear on the agenda that day.
Okay. Can we just maybe email that in to Ms. Wendell, topics? Or-
Yes, if you'll copy me also, that way we make sure
Okay.
we can get all the reports put together.
Okay. Anyone have something topic-wise that you wanted to add to the agenda this morning? Okay, then just email Ms. Wendell and copy Ms. Kaufman on that email if you have something that comes up that you would like to have addressed.
All right.
Okay?
Otherwise, we'll kind of have our similar
Uh-huh.
updates and reports, and then if there's anything new and burning, we'll
We'll add
have
to
that
it.
on there, and then anything you've added to it.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Anybody
you.
else
Thank you.
have anything? Okay, Well, if not, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank y'all for coming. We appreciate it.